Hey artists, in this video I'm going to take you through our Tradition in Clothes project for this week. The first few classes we've had this week, we've looked at the Assiniboine and the Sioux Native American tribes and the traditional clothes that they make. So we learned about the techniques used to create these clothing and also the symbols and things that we can see within them. We are going to design our own items of clothing this week that show our own personal traditions. We are not copying Native American traditional clothing. We are not going to draw pictures of what we saw in the classes so far this week, and we are not going to just draw an image that we think looks like Native American clothing. We are actually going to be taking inspiration from the traditions and the things that we have learned to create our own ideas for a piece of clothing. In that piece of clothing, you are going to use symbols or materials that represent your own personal traditions. So not the traditions of the Assiniboine and the Sioux people. They are supposed to be about you. The first step in creating our item of clothing is to choose it. So you're going to choose what you would like to design. It might be a shoe like what I'm creating right now, or it could be a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, anything that you would like to design. You can draw out first. So I just use the marker to draw the outline of a shoe, and then inside I will be putting in all of my symbols to represent my own personal tradition. As I finish up the outline of my shoe, I'm starting to think about my personal traditions. I am going to include at least 3 personal traditions. The first tradition I'm going to show is reading. So I get the gift of a book for holidays or for my birthday every year from my family because they know I love to read and I read almost every day. So to show that in my shoe, I'm going to draw an example of what book pages would look like if this shoe was real. So if the shoe was real, I would want to actually glue down book pages, but because it's not, I'm just going to draw it as if this was actually book pages on my shoe. So in the way that the Assiniboine and the Sioux people would use materials from their natural environments, we can think about the materials that we have that we can put into our items of clothing to represent our own personal traditions. The next tradition I'm going to represent is gardening. So this is a tradition that has been handed down from my grandparents to their kids and then from my mom to me. So the tradition of gardening started when my grandparents opened a garden center and then their kids worked there, which included my mom, and then I worked there when I got older. So to represent that, I'm going to use a symbol this time instead of a material. So a symbol is just a picture that represents something. So the symbols I'm going to use are a flower to represent the flowers there, and also I'm going to fill the background with leaves because I think it looks pretty cool and it represents gardening. Because we have to remember that our symbols actually have to look good to us. So whatever you're using, make sure that you actually like the way it looks and would want to wear this piece of clothing. The last tradition I'm going to show is Sunday night dinners. So my sister and I have for the past couple of years been meeting every Sunday, if we can, to have a big Sunday night dinner. To represent that, I'm going to have a row of plates. So I'll just do circles with another circle inside to show that this represents those Sunday night dinners. Of course, you might not see that right away when you look at the shoe. If you looked at it, you might just see circles. But because I know what it represents, that's okay. So your symbols don't have to be clear to anybody else but you. When you submit your artwork, I'm going to have you explain what those are so I know what you mean, but it doesn't have to be exactly what you're showing. Like, I don't have any food on the plate, and that's okay. When you're all finished, you should have a unique design for a piece of clothing that shows off your personal traditions. I cannot wait to see what you created.